Hello and welcome back to Gaffy's Grinds. This is video 4 in our series on junior cycle cells, tissues and organs. So in our previous lesson, we learned about unicellular organisms and bacteria as an example of a unicellular organism. Now in today's lesson, we are just going to begin with a couple of quick recap questions on that. And they are here. So like I always say, guys, if you're going to watch the videos, it's really important that you do these tasks and that you try to eliminate any distractions. So turn off your phone, stick it in another room somewhere where it can't go off, and get out a piece of pen and a paper and really give these questions your best go. I would like you to answer them using full sentences, please, except for number 5, where you have to draw and label a cell. So I want you to pause the video and do these questions now, please. Okay, so you should have answered questions 1 to 5. You should only be listening to me if you have done those. Again, I will repeat, if you're not doing the questions, you're not going to learn very much, and that's wasting your time. You're here to watch the video. You may as well learn as much as you can while you're here. So the first question is, what is a unicellular organism? So we learned this last day. Unicellular organism means it's an organism made of only one cell. So a unicellular organism is made of only one cell. That's what you should have. Key phrase here, made of only one cell. That bit has to be in your answer. Made of only one cell, or contains only one cell, something like that. Examples of unicellular organisms are bacteria and yeast. So bacteria we looked at in detail. We did discuss yeast as another one that we as humans use in things like making bread, in things like making wine and beer. So in the brewing industry and in the baking industry, yeast is very important, and it is a unicellular organism. Question 3 asked, what is a multicellular organism? Okay, a multicellular organism is made of many cells. So that's the key phrase there. You have to have it's made or it contains many cells. And number 4, plants and animals are examples of multicellular organisms. So question 4 asked, what is an example of two examples of multicellular organisms? You could have said something like plants and animals, or a better answer even would have been if you were specific about the answers. So instead of just saying a plant, give a name of a plant. So I've said oak tree here. You could have said ash tree, beech tree. You could have said grass. You could have said rose bush. You could have said whatever your favorite flower is. All of those would be plants. So if you actually named one, that would be better than just saying plants. And then animals, human, you could have had dog, cat, sheep, goat, cow, whatever you want, just an example of a human. So it's better to give an actual example than to just say a big group of things like plants and animals, even though it is technically correct. Now, the one mistake I could have seen it answering there is where it says what is a multicellular organism and what is a unicellular organism. You may have given your examples of those there. You may have said a unicellular organism is a bacteria. And I can see why you might do that, but technically that doesn't explain what a unicellular organism is. So that's why the second question, where it says give 2 examples, that's where we would give our examples, bacteria and yeast. In the question, what is a unicellular organism? To answer it by saying a unicellular organism is bacteria, that doesn't explain what a unicellular organism is. So just be careful on the difference between them 2 questions. And the last question here was to draw and label an animal cell. Draw and label an animal cell. And this is what you would have had. So going back over here, this is the diagram that you guys may have drawn. So you should have an irregular shaped cell. Okay, so irregular shape. So it's not more square or rectangular shape like a plant cell. So make sure you tick it for shape. You should have a nucleus labeled, a round spot, a dark spot, call it the nucleus. You should have the cell membrane, which is the outside of the cell. You should have the mitochondria, and these are oval shaped. You should have a cytoplasm, which is the liquid part of the cell, and you should have these ribosomes, which are like little dots. Note, you do not have a cell wall, you do not have a vacuole, and you do not have chloroplasts because they only belong to plant cells. Now, this is the animal cell that we've learned about in the past, and this is what we call a general animal cell. General animal cell. This is kind of just a model or a diagram we use to show a general animal cell. not every single cell inside an animal is going to look like this and have these exact parts and these exact features. And the reason for that is if we were made of all cells that were exactly like that, then our bodies would be very mundane. They would be very plain. There would be nothing to us because we'd just be made up of this massive mass of the same kind of cell. Now, really, if you think about your body, it's got all these different complicated parts, like a brain, you've got bones, skeleton, you've got lungs, you've got heart, you've got muscles, you've got your different joints, you've got your fingers, you've got your skin. All of these have to be different types of cells because they have different features. So they can't be just all one kind of cell. So this is what we call a general animal cell. But for the body to be able to function correctly, we have to have what we call specialized cells. So specialized cells, there's these things called specialized cells, and they are what we call adapted to suit their function. So they have these adaptations. And adaptations are really just features that help the cell to do its job properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some features, and we're going to take a look at some specialized animal cells and how they are adapted to carry out their job. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is something called a nerve cell. A nerve cell. Now, you may have heard the phrase, you're getting on my nerves. Well, that's not technically what we're talking about here. We're talking about nerve cells are a specific type of cell in the body. And the nerve cell has the cell body with a nucleus, kind of like what we've already seen, but then it's got some very strange features, very strange structures. It's got these connections that spread out from the cell body. It's got this really long body. So compared to the other cell, it's got this really long, narrow body. And at the end then of this long body structure, there are more connections. And this is what we call a nerve cell. Nerve cell. So this is a nerve cell. Now, the function of a nerve cell, and remember what function means. Function just means job. So job in science we call functions. And the function of a nerve cell is to carry electric impulses, what we call electric impulses, and these are just electric messages around the body. Now, these electric messages have to be able to move around the body really, really fast. They're the way different parts of our body can communicate with other parts of the body. So your brain can communicate with your muscles to tell them to move, for example. So if you put your hand on a hot stove, or you put your hand on something hot, you automatically pull your hand away. You'll all recognize that feeling of feeling something hot that you're not expecting to be hot and then whipping your hand away really quick. Well, it's your nerves that are responsible for this because nerve cells carry the messages to the brain. The brain realizes the feeling, the sensation that it's getting is that your skin is hot, and it sends a message back along the nerves to make your hand move away. So you don't literally hold your hand there and think for ages, this is hot, I think I'll move my hand. It's automatic, you don't think about it. So that's your body's way of responding. So your nerve cells are what carry the messages to your brain and back to your muscles to help you to move your hand really quickly, or to help make your body move. So that's what the function of the nerve cell is, the job. They carry electrical messages around the body. Now, what features do they have? Well, obviously this cell is different from the general animal cell. Now, it's still an animal cell because you find them in animals, but it's different from the general one. Very clearly here, it's got different parts. So we call these different features or different structures, we call them adaptations. So adaptations are features that help a cell to do its job. Okay, so an example here of an adaptation is this long body. And this long body makes the cell really long. Okay, so long body to help get the messages around the body. To get the messages around the body. So with this long body around the body. Now, it is a bit more complicated than this. For example, this long body has a name, but you guys don't need to know that. Okay, you don't need to know the name here. So I'm just going to call it a long body for now, and that will do fine. Okay, so we've got the long body to get messages around the body. We've also got what I'm drawing here in red. This is another special feature that the cell has. And this is what we call insulation. And again, it is a little bit more complicated than this. There is a name on this stuff, but I'm not going to just tell you that now because you don't really need to know. But you need to know that it's insulation. And insulation helps the messages to travel more quickly inside the cell, stops the messages from escaping out of the cell. So this is what we call insulation. Helps messages to travel more quickly. Travel quickly. And the last thing it has is lots of connections. So you can see here on the head here, this is what we call connections. And the reason why it needs connections, and it's also got connections down here. The connections, lots of connections. The reason why it needs this is to send messages to other cells. So it sends messages to other nerve cells or to other cells. Okay, so that's the function. The adaptations are the features. So each of these is a feature. It has a long body to help get messages around the person or the animal. It has insulation to make sure the messages travel quickly, and it has lots of connections so that it can send messages to other cells. These three things together are features or adaptations that help the nerve cell to do its function, which is to carry impulses, electric impulses, around the body. We'll look at another type of cell now. So this here, actually, do you know what? I'm gonna take that off. Okay, so this here is quite a long tubular type of cell. And this tubular cell has these long, stretchy fibers. Okay, so it's got these long, stretchy fibers. So it looks quite different from the general animal cell. This is what we call a muscle cell. This is a muscle cell. So it's definitely got some adaptations. It's definitely got some features that are different from the general cell that help it to do its job. Now, the job of a muscle cell is, I'm going to draw two arrows pointing in like this, and I'm going to draw the cell again. Now, as you can see, hopefully you can make out what's happened here, is that the cell has made itself get shorter. We call this contracting. So to contract means to get shorter. So the muscle cell can contract and get shorter. It does this because the fibers can basically tighten up and they can make the cell get shorter. So the function of the muscle cell is to contract, which the fibers tighten up and they shorten, and then it can relax. So they can contract and relax, which means it can go back to its original length. And this allows your body to move the parts of it. So to move your arm, for example. So to contract and relax, to move parts of the body. So that is the function of a muscle cell. Now, you can actually feel this if you grab a hold, if you take your arm and stretch it out, hold it out straight in front of you. And what I want you to do is I want you to feel the muscle on the top part of your arm. This muscle is called a biceps. Now what I want you to do is I want you to hold your thumb at the top of your arm and try and find around where the top of that muscle is. So where it kind of attaches at your shoulder, feel for where the top of your muscle is. And then with your index finger, the middle one, stretch it down to around the elbow, the inside of your elbow, and feel the length of that muscle when your arm is straightened. And then if you lift your arm up and actually feel with your fingers what happens to that muscle as you lift your arm up. So you're making a part of your body move, you're lifting your arm up, and I want you to actually try and feel what happens to the length of your muscle. So what you should feel is that the length of the muscle, if this is the length of your muscle, we'll say, shown by this line, and what happens is, or say, actually, do you know what? We'll do a little bit better job than that. Say this is the general shape of your muscle when it's straight, when it's stretched. So arm straight. When you lift your arm, what you'll feel is lifted arm. What you'll feel is that the muscle is much shorter and much more bulged in the middle. So all the mass of the muscle goes into the middle. So basically what happens here is this gets shorter when we lift our arm and all the muscle collects up here. So the muscle is shorter. We say it has contracted. Okay, so it gets, the whole muscle gets shorter, and that's what makes your arm move. It pulls up on the bottom part of your arm and it lifts your arm. Now, if I was actually able to see you guys, I'd be able to show you exactly how to do that, but hopefully you're able to follow that. Right, so this is the muscle cell. Its job is to contract and relax to move parts of your body. For example, your arms and your legs. But we do have other parts that we need to move as well. We need our heart to actually contract so it can beat. We need a big muscle in our chest, just below our chest, to contract, help us to breathe. So there's lots of places where we have muscle, not just moving our arms and our legs. Now, why is muscle cell able to do this? Well, it has these features. What does it have? It has elastic fibers. It has elastic fibers, or what we call stretchy fibers. So it's elastic fibers, which means the muscle can contract and relax without cells being torn or destroyed or ripped. Okay, if it didn't have these fibers, it would not be able to do this job. So it has elastic fibers, and it also has many mitochondria. Many mitochondria. Now, why would it need many mitochondria? Well, these are very active cells. They're going to be getting shorter and relaxing all the time, and that's going to require a lot of energy. So why do we need mitochondria? Well, when we have a lot of mitochondria, we can release a lot of energy. And this is going to allow these cells to do their job, which is to make the body move. So without doubt, the thing that your body does that uses the most energy is when you go out and you're very active and you make your body do a lot of work. So you go out running, you go out play a football game, you go out for a jog, you go to the gym. Your muscles are using a lot of energy, more than you usually use. So because that is what your body uses the most energy for, is to make your body move. So that's why these cells in particular need a lot of mitochondria. So again, this is the adaptations. These are features which help the cell to do their function, which is to contract and relax to move parts of the body. So the elastic fibers and the many mitochondria are the adaptations that make the cell good at doing this particular job. We're going to look at one more cell. This here, I'm drawing a circle. And inside that circle, actually, do you know what? I am going to put in the shape this time. I'm drawing a circle, and inside that circle, I'm drawing another circle. Now, this is what it looks like from the top down. This is a red blood cell. Red blood cell. So they're one of the main types of cells in your blood. We do have other types of cells as well, but these are the cells that make your blood look red. Now, if I drew this from the side, that's it looking from the top down. If I drew it from the side, I would see this. So they are kind of a disc, but they have these two dents in them, okay? So two dents, kind of like the arch of a bridge, okay? And this is called a concave shape. So when you see a shape like this, I'm going to highlight it in yellow here. When you see a shape like this, it's kind of like caved in. It's like an arch. That's what we call a concave shape. Now we've got one of them on the top and we've got one on the bottom. So we've got two of these concaves. So this is what we call a biconcave shape. So a biconcave shape. So this cell has a biconcave shape. Now, what is the job of a red blood cell? The job or function of a red blood cell is to carry oxygen around the body. That's the job that it has to do. As you can see, it is quite different from the general animal cell. So what features does it have that make it good at doing this job? Well, first of all, it's got this strange shape. So the biconcave shape. Now, what this biconcave shape does is it gives the cell a large surface area. And we've seen surface area before when we looked at chemical reactions. And large surface area in this case allows more oxygen to be attached to the cell. So it allows more oxygen to be carried by the cell. So large surface area means greater ability to carry oxygen. These cells have no nucleus. So really importantly, they have no nucleus. And most cells do have a nucleus. So red blood cells are one of the only cells with no nucleus. So they have no nucleus. Now, why do they have no nucleus? Well, this makes more space to carry oxygen. More space for oxygen. So this cell really is focused on one job, and that is carrying oxygen. It also contains a chemical called hemoglobin. Now, that chemical is quite complicated, and I'm not going to tell you what it's made of or anything because that's a little bit too much advanced for us at the moment. But it's a chemical that's really good at grabbing oxygen atoms or oxygen particles. So it contains hemoglobin, and these are the particles that carry the oxygen. They are also the particles that make the cell be red. So hemoglobin is like a red colored chemical. And it's what makes the red blood cells look red in color. And it's also what helps them to grab hold of oxygen and carry it. So all of these are, again, what we call adaptations or special features that help the red blood cell to carry out its function. So the adaptations are a biconcave shape, which give it a large surface area. It has no nucleus, making more space for oxygen, and it contains this chemical hemoglobin, which carries oxygen. And all of these help it to do its function, which is to carry oxygen around the body. All right, so it's time to do some practice now because that was quite a lot of information to take in. So what I've got here for you is I want you to now write out this paragraph, please. But obviously I want you to fill in the gaps. So don't just write down the words in the gap. The whole point here is that you practice getting good at writing science and putting together all of the information we've learned today into a coherent paragraph. So what I want you to do is pause the video and write that out, filling in the keywords, please. Okay, so like I said, if you're not going to do the task, you're wasting your time. So you really need to make sure you have this done. You should only be listening if you have written that out and filled in the blanks. The answers are coming up now. The answers are highlighted in yellow. So what I want you to do is pause the video and make your corrections now, please. Okay, it's really important that if you made a mistake, that you don't just mark it wrong. You need to actually fix it. Hopefully, you managed to do okay with that. It's pretty much exactly related to what we just did. Here are some questions for you guys to do. So I want you to pause the video and do questions 1 to 4. Just do 1 to 4 for now. Okay, so you should only be listening if you have done questions 1 to 4. I'm going to just help you get started on number 5. It's a little bit different. If you've watched all the videos, you will have seen me doing this before. But basically what you guys have to do is you have to use the sentence stem to complete a sentence, to make a sentence that makes sense. So it doesn't have to be, there's not only one right answer, but it has to make sense. So red blood cells have no nucleus because, well, why would they have no nucleus? So I might say something like something here is because they are adapted to carry oxygen. So red blood cells have no nucleus because they are adapted to carry oxygen. That might be a good sentence there. So what I want you to do is pause the video, take down, you can use the one I just said, or you can use a different one if you like. And then I want you to do the other two. Okay, so pause the video and do that now. Right, here are the answers coming up. I want you to pause the video and make any corrections that you need to your answers. Okay, for number 5, you may have a sentence that still makes sense and isn't the exact same as those. You may like the ones I have done better. If you do, you can use them. If you had no sentence at all, you didn't know how to do it, well, then you can use the ones I have. But I would prefer if you had tried to write something. Okay, I don't really see any massive problems there. Okay, I'm hoping that you guys were able to do that from the explanations. Okay, we're just going to look now at some specialized plant cell, because it's not just animal cells that can be specialized. Plant cells can also be specialized to do specific jobs. So we're going to look at a specialized plant cell now. Specialized plant cell. Now, of course, I just want to clarify as well, these aren't the only 3 specialized animal cells. There's loads. I'm just picked these 3 to study. It's important to know that, of course, there are also brain cells, kidney cells, liver cells, skin cells. There's loads of different kinds of cells. We just picked those 3 to have a look. And I'm just going to tell you one plant cell here today, and you guys can learn about what a specialized plant cell is from this, but know that there are other ones. Okay, so here is a specialized plant cell. Okay, it looks quite like a plant cell so far. It's rectangular, it's got a regular shape, but it's got this long projection out from the side. Okay, it's got a long projection out from the side. Now, what I'm drawing here is I'm drawing the cell membrane. So this is the second layer inside the plant cell. So just like a standard general plant cell, it also has the same general parts. Now, this outside layer, what is this called? On 3, I want you to speak your answer to the screen. 1, 2, 3. I'm hoping that you said it is a cell wall. Well done if you said cell wall. And the inside cell, I've just told you a couple of seconds ago what I was drawing there, but speak your answer to the screen on 3. What do we call this? 1, 2, 3. Okay, this here is the cell membrane. Well done if you said that. The next thing I'm doing is in red, I am drawing a circular organ, a round circular organelle. What would this one be called, please? Okay, now it looks a little bit different from the way I drew it before, and I wrote DNA in it the last time I drew it, but it's important to know that I suppose they're not always going to be drawn the exact same, but this is a single thing on its own. It's round, it's quite big in the cell. This is the nucleus. Okay, it's the nucleus. And then I'm going to draw a large kind of sac. And this sac extends into this projection. This sac is called the vacuole. So there's no new parts there, but there is a new part that we haven't seen before, and that's this whole projection here. This is what we call a root hair. So it's kind of like a hair. Now I'm just going to go, I have a picture here that I want to get, and that is this guy here. So I'm just going to drag that down. This here is a picture of a root tip. So as you can see, this whole thing is a root. And these guys here, these little projections, these are the root hairs. So in this area here contains cells that look like this. Okay, so each of these root hairs, these little fiber looking things, that is one of these guys. Okay, now the function of this particular cell is to absorb water and minerals for the plant. And it does this from the soil. So it absorbs water and minerals for the plant from the soil. That is what we call the job or the function of the root hair cell. And the root in general, the whole root does the same thing. It absorbs water and minerals from the soil. So why is it good? Why is this root down here good at absorbing water and minerals from the soil? Well, it's good at this job because it's got lots of root hair cells. Now, why are root hair cells good at this job? What features do they have that make it good? Well, this long projection sticking out to the side here, this gives the cell a large surface area. So by having this long, thin projection, it covers more area than just the original general plant cell did. It's got this large kind of arm sticking out, or fingers sticking out, if you like, and it just helps it to stick out into the soil and cover more area. So we've got a large surface area for water to move into. Okay, so the more surface area you have, the more water and the more minerals can move in, which is what the plant wants to do, what the plant needs. It has many mitochondria, which I haven't really shown here. So let's draw them in. It's got many mitochondria. So here are the little mitochondria in red. Mitochondria, I'm sticking them in red. So these are the mitochondria. Now, why does this cell need many mitochondria? Well, it requires energy to get minerals in particular and water to move into the cell. Okay, so to provide many mitochondria provide energy to move water and minerals. So the minerals in particular don't just flow into the cell. They kind of have to be pumped into the cell, and this requires energy. So minerals, to get from the soil into the plant, they have to be kind of absorbed or pumped into the cell. So the cells, the root hair cells are able to pump the minerals into the plant, basically. And this needs energy, and the energy comes from the many mitochondria that are in the cell. Finally, the last thing is that this particular cell has no chloroplasts. And most plant cells, the general plant cell, had chloroplasts. Now, why does it need no chloroplasts or have no chloroplasts? Well, roots tend to be underground, and there's no light underground. So if there's no light underground, then no photosynthesis can happen. So it doesn't need the chloroplasts. So over millions of years, the cells in the roots in plants would have lost their chloroplasts because they don't actually need them. They don't actually use them. So again, these three things, the large surface area because of the finger sticking out or the root hair sticking out, the many mitochondria, which provide energy, and the fact that there's no chloroplasts, these are all adaptations, features of a root hair cell that make it good at doing its function, which is to absorb minerals and water from the soil. Okay, time to do some practice on these plant cells, specialized plant cells, right? So here we go. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and I want you to try to do questions. You can just do 1 to 6 for now, please. So pause the video, do 1 to 6. Okay, so you should only be listening if you have paused the video and done 1 to 6. I also want you now to do number 7. You can see it there. So you've got a diagram of a root hair cell. You need to draw that diagram and use these guys here to label it. Okay, so this is your root hair. Okay, that's a bit big. That's your root hair cell. And you guys are going to copy that down and you're going to label it for me. Okay, so do that now, please. Okay, here we go. The function of a root hair cell is to absorb water and minerals for the plant. Function of the mitochondria is to release energy for the cell. The next question said, why do root hair cells have lots of mitochondria? They need lots of energy to move the water and minerals. Why do root hair cells not contain chloroplasts? So why don't root hair cells contain chloroplasts? Well, they're underground and there's no light there. So photosynthesis can't happen. Suggest why a cell within the trunk of a tree cannot carry out photosynthesis. Well, it's the same reason. If you've got a cell that's in the middle of a tree trunk, no light can get there. So it cannot carry out photosynthesis because light is required for photosynthesis. Well done if you got that one right. If not, make a note of it now. Okay, I'll just show you over here the answers again. Sorry. Number 5, you can see it there. Number 6 asks you, the image on the right shows a plant root. The plant root is adapted for absorbing water from the soil. Use information from the diagram to explain how this root is adapted for absorbing water. Well, the root is adapted to absorb water from the soil because it has many root hair cells. So all of these guys are root hair cells, and these are what have the features that make it adapted to its job. So what are those features again? They have many mitochondria, they have a large surface area, and they have no chloroplasts. The last thing you had to do is label the root hair cell. So this is what you should have. First of all, I see a nucleus here. So there's nucleus, this, and then we have 4 labels. So this here, this white space in the middle, that's going to be the vacuole. Well done if you said that. We then have, just having a closer look here, we have the very outside here is going to be your cell wall. Let's have a look. What were the other labels? We had to have cell membrane, cytoplasm, vacuole. We've got vacuole, so we have the cell membrane and the cytoplasm left to do. So the second one here is the cell membrane. There, membrane. And this one here is going to be your cytoplasm. So this bit in here, the liquid part of the cell, that's your cytoplasm. Okay, all right, well done. If you did that right, guys, great job. And that is all about specialized cells. Now, of course, specialized cells we find in multicellular organisms, and they are what allow multicellular organisms to have different parts. So we're not all just made of one type of cell. Okay, in the next video, we're going to take a look at how these cells, specialized cells, are organized to make full organisms. So big structures like humans, how do all these cells work together to make us into the bigger organisms that we are? So I will see you in the next video. If you give the video a like, it will help other students to find the video, and it may help some other students. So that will be helpful. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next video.